Throughout the histories of Arda, we've seen a huge number of influential characters come and go, with detailed and complex motivations and backstories. Many over the ages have fallen to darkness, but none perhaps so entwined in the fate of the world as Saruman, who was once one of the champions of the light. An Instari and an emissary of the Valar, he fell to the sway of Sauron and became one of his vassals. However, Saruman was a complex figure, and today we'll delve into his fall and darkness, his motivations, and also the final fight of the once white wizard. Greetings all, I'm your guide, the Archivist. Today I will dive into the life of Saruman, his origins, and his fall to darkness after being swayed by the Dark Lord Sauron. Appearance and presentation. Saruman, the White Wizard and the first of the Instari, has a varied selection of descriptions surrounding his direct appearance, but it's generally considered that he has donned a white cloak, presented as an old wizened man, and had a stern and discerning demeanour. Tolkien described Saruman as the time of the Lord of the Rings, as having a long face and a high forehead. He had deep, darkling eyes. His hair and beard were white, but strands of black still showed around his lips and ears. His hair is elsewhere described as having been black when he first arrived in Middle-earth. He is referred to as Saruman the White and is said to have originally worn white robes, but on his first entry into the Fellowship of the Ring, they instead appeared to be woven from all colours, shimmered and changed hue so that the eye was bewildered, and he names himself Saruman of Many Colours. It appears the archives show that Saruman initially had a white cloak, but donned a multicoloured one after revealing his later treachery. Powers and abilities. Being one of the Instari or wizards and head of the White Council, designed to bring all powerful beings in coalition against Sauron, Saruman had a great deal of powers and abilities. His deep knowledge was one of his key skills, but he also possessed great magical ability and was able to imprison Gandalf after he confronted him about his allegiances. He was described by Gandalf as being of great knowledge and skill, and his insight was indeed shown through his deeds, being able to breed Uruk-hai, having a vast network of spies, and control over animals which evaded detection in many instances. He also had a near obsession-like fascination with lore surrounding the Rings of Power, specifically the One Ring, and his knowledge of science allowed him to create many war engines which are not seen elsewhere, such as explosives that ultimately led to the breach of Helm's Deep, also shown in the film adaptations, as well as burning Ents to the ground. However, his close study of the Rings of Power led to his ultimate twisting to the will of the One Ring, and became its servant in the end. His magical abilities are well shown throughout his appearance in the archives, possessing the abilities for direct confrontation, redirection, and incredible speechcraft. One spell showed him giving speed and strength to orcs, whilst also hindering the Fellowship with an ailment. The speechcraft of Saruman was his greatest boon, which was often demonstrated throughout his appearance in the archives, ensnaring many with his will and words. Even with Isengard broken and Saruman's treachery revealed, Gandalf had to be very careful, as Saruman could ensnare almost anyone with the power of his voice. Few could contend with his will. Gandalf was not drawn into this power when he confronted Saruman, in trying to enchant someone of the company. Gandalf was not drawn into his power when he confronted Saruman, in trying to enchant some of the company. He left others out of his designs, and thus could not ensnare everyone at once. However, even in this situation, it is said that only Gandalf himself remained totally unconvinced by Saruman, seeing through him and his treachery. Origins and seeds of betrayal. Saruman was once one of the Light, being a Maiar of Aule named Curumo originally, one of the 5 wizards that were tasked initially with helping the elves to deal with the threat of the first Dark Lord Melkor posed. Melkor was defeated, and as was Sauron at the end of the Second Age, but a council was then called by Manwë, fearing the return of the darkness yet again, and tasked the mighty peers of Sauron to go to Middle-earth and help the men and elves unite against Sauron and defeat him in finality. Saruman, or Curumo as he was called at this time, volunteered to be part of the 5 that would descend again. Olorin also was tasked with Manwë to go, who would later be known as Gandalf. The seeds of betrayal began to be sown at this point in Saruman, who was jealous of Manwë's special attention to Olorin being placed as the second Istari to be sent. Iwendil was also put into Coromo's charge, who would later be known as Radagast, and contempt grew also in the direction of the latter known wood wizard. Coromo was appointed the leader of the group overall after Alatar and Palando. The blue wizards were also appointed to the group. The 5 wizards then arrived later separately at the Grey Havens in the west of Eriador around the year TA 1000. Only the keeper of the havens, Círdan the shipwright, knew Saruman's true identity. Saruman would later discover that Círdan had given Narya, the Red Ring, to Gandalf upon their first landing in Middle-earth, which drew more ire and contempt from within Saruman, as he had a fascination with powerful rings. Even though Saruman was immediately considered the head of the Order whilst Gandalf was not, Círdan had divined Gandalf as the wisest and greatest of the wizards. Saruman's jealousy of Gandalf grew from these events, perhaps because he feared that he would eventually supplant him as the leader of the wizards, as he considered himself the wisest and strongest of their number. The White Messenger and the 2 blue wizards went into the east of Middle-earth. After 1.5 millennia, Saruman returned to the west, just as Sauron's power was growing again in Dol Guldur. During this period, little was known of what Saruman did, and this often has been a point of those who look in the archives considering Sauron may have swayed Saruman, known or unknown, to the power of him and the One Ring. Darkness falls over Saruman. According to the archives, when the White Council was formed around the year 2463 of the Third Age in order to counter Sauron, Saruman was appointed its leader, though Galadriel wanted Gandalf in this position. Saruman refused to step down due to his pride, and his resentment again grew at the idea of being supplanted by what he considered the lesser wizard. At this point, Saruman had begun to sense the resurgence of Sauron and the influence of the ring on his mind. His extensive research, especially into ring lore, had led him to admire the Dark Lord and covet his abilities and power that he possessed. Saruman's suspicions of Gandalf the Grey, knowing a small creature had stolen the ring, and seeing his visitation to the Shire, the White Wizard himself began to keep a closer watch on the Grey Pilgrim and sent spies to the Shire to report on all of his movements. After this point, Saruman settled in Isengard in the year TA 2759 with the permission of the Steward of Gondor Beren, although he settled only as a warden of the tower and representative of Minas Tirith. There he became important in the informal alliance defending the west of the Middle-earth. In the Tower of Orthanc in Isengard, he also found one of the remaining Palantiri and used it, betraying the White Council's trust. This Palantiri was also one of the chief reasons thought to have corrupted Saruman, giving him access to Sauron, albeit in a fairly indirect way to be influenced. After finding and ousting Sauron from Dol Guldur, and Gandalf beginning to suspect potential collusion on the behalf of the White Wizard's severe interest in the One Ring, Sauron declared himself openly. He established contact with Saruman through the Palantir captured from Minas Ithil, which had become known as Minas Morgul. Sauron was turned to the idea of having Sauron being allowed to succeed, believing it would still suit his plan to reveal the One Ring and then take it for himself before the Dark Lord could be reunited with it. He no longer opposed his plans. In TA 2953, Saruman took Isengard by force for himself and began to fortify and harass the borders of Rohan through his Orc and Dunlending allies, whilst keeping hidden any evidence of his treachery. Isengard prepared for war, breeding and mustering a following of Orcs, Uruk-hai, half-Orcs and Wargs within Isengard, an army raised both in service and in competition of Sauron's own, in defiance of the Dark Lord's will. Betrayal Revealed. Using Radagast, Saruman summoned Gandalf to Isengard and revealed his true purpose and intentions, shedding the title of the White in favour of Saruman of many colours. He announced his alliance as vassal to the Dark Lord and commanded that Gandalf join him on the side of the dark. Saruman's main purpose was to garner the location of the One Ring, but Gandalf refused this as well, leading to Saruman keeping him prisoner in the Tower of Orthanc. However, Gandalf escaped with the help of Gwaihir the Wind Lord, one of Middle-earth's great eagles, and let the world know of Saruman's treachery, finally in the open as a servant of Sauron. After this, Nazgul came to Saruman, asking for information on the One Ring, but he convinced them not to glean anything from Gandalf. But he convinced them that he did not glean anything from Gandalf using speechcraft, and still attempting to play both sides, kept information from the Dark Lord concerning its potential location. Saruman's defeat. Knowing that the wizard had now come out into the open, Sauron commanded Saruman to move against Rohan and Theoden, using Grima Wormtongue to sap the king's strength whilst orc raiding parties laid waste to the Gap and the Westfold. Saruman, still playing both sides, also sent out his trusted Uruk-hai warbands in search of the ring and to capture the Fellowship, leading to the legendary sequence of Boromir defending the Hobbits, depicted well in the movie adaptations. One of those Uruk-hai hordes ambushed the company at Amon Hen, where they took Pippin and Merry captive, whilst also shooting Boromir with many black feathered arrows, when he tried to defend the Hobbits. Infighting amongst the orcs and Uruk-hai led to the party being slain by Rohirrim outside of Fangorn Forest. After witnessing this through his projection or his network of spies, Saruman feared that he was undone, and that he would be caught out one way or another on both sides of the story. Driven by fear, he doubled down on his assault of Rohan and the army of Isengard, engaging the defenders of Rohan at the fjords of Isen, which ended in the death of Theoden's son, Theodred. After this, Saruman marched his full might on the Helm's Deep, hoping to gain some favour in Sauron's eyes and clemency if things should go awry. However, even though they almost won, in the final hour of their victory Gandalf appeared with reinforcements. Meanwhile, the Ents led by Treebeard besieged Isengard, seeking vengeance for incursions by orc axemen into Fangorn Forest. This battle on two fronts was too great for Saruman, and he was soundly defeated and his claim to a stronghold of power was over. The Fall of Saruman. After his thorough defeat, according to the archives, Saruman was confined to his tower in Orthanc, trapped there by Gandalf. After the arrival of Theoden, Gandalf, Aragorn, and the remaining members of the Fellowship, Saruman made one final unsuccessful attempt to bring Theoden under his sway, recognising the claw of Mordor through the extended hand of Isengard, though the king refused. Gandalf offered Saruman a chance for redemption, which involved surrendering his staff and the key of Orthanc as a pledge, in exchange for freedom to head wherever he pleased, even to Sauron in Mordor. This was an incredible gamble by Gandalf considering all that Saruman had achieved when he left to his own devices, but Saruman's prideful nature would not allow him to surrender, and he turned them down. After this, Saruman played no part in the setting of the War of the Ring, not taking part in the final battles in the east of Middle-earth, and the eventual destruction of the ring. He did use his speechcraft to eventually convince the Ents to let him free from the tower, and actually spent a large amount of time lording over the Shire and the Hobbits as a tyrant. These were his final days at playing as a king, a fitting end to one who sought so much power, until he was overthrown in the Battle of Bywater. In the aftermath of that battle, Frodo confronted Saruman and exiled him from the Shire, but before he could leave, Grima Wormtongue killed Saruman by slitting his throat with a dagger on the very doorstep of Bag End. His final fate. Saruman was ultimately a Maiar, and like Sauron or Gandalf, could not truly die despite the death of his physical body. Saruman's spirit separated from his body much like Sauron's after the downfall of Númenor. Because of his status as a Maiar, and once a servant of the light, he should have been drawn to the hills of Mandos like so many had been before him. However, it seems from the archives that his spirit was barred from entering because of his deeds in life and his lust for power. It seems that Tolkien indicated that his spirit was left naked, powerless, and wandering, never to return to Middle-earth. The quote states that Saruman was cast down and utterly humbled, and perished at last by the hand of an oppressed slave, and his spirit went whithersoever it was doomed to go, and to Middle-earth, where the naked or embodied came never back. And so I have now covered the content for this video, but if there's anything that has been missed, please share them in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this content, please remember to like the subscribe and like Waystones down below. Na luig of Vanadvan. Until we meet again.